Is Asean talking to Myanmar again? Myanmar and the other ASEAN nations just had a very big meeting. The foreign ministers of all the ASEAN nations, including Myanmar, got together to meet in Bangkok, and they were discussing Myanmar and only Myanmar. There was a lot they agreed about and there were a lot they disagreed about, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Hello everyone, it's Asean Anthony, and in this video, Myanmar, ASEAN, and the big meeting. Now today is July 14th, 2026, but this past weekend something unexpected happened. For the first time since 2021, Myanmar's foreign minister met with all of the ASEAN foreign ministers in Bangkok. The goal of this meeting was to discuss peace in Myanmar, humanitarian aid in Myanmar, trade and diplomatic inclusion, all for Myanmar. Now, they also came to discuss this 5-point consensus plan, although there wasn't a lot of progress made on this. But this 5-point consensus plan, that is what the ASEAN countries are pushing as the solution to the conflict in Myanmar. Now, surprisingly, in this meeting in Bangkok, Myanmar's government agreed to meet with the opposition groups, all of the opposition groups, except one, that is the NUG, the National Unity Government, okay? They are clearly just trying to isolate this group. They have a special dislike for this group because this group is the group that is claiming to be the true government of Myanmar. So I can understand why they don't want to meet with them. So all of the ASEAN nations joined the meeting except one, and that was Cambodia. And this is because Cambodia did not want to go to Thailand, because Cambodia does not want to discuss warlike issues with a country like Thailand, because Thailand and Cambodia have warlike tension. So it just didn't seem appropriate for Cambodia to join. But all the other countries in the ASEAN, they did join. But their opinions were not unified. Let's start with Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They seem to be pushing this 5-point consensus plan. Now, this 5-point consensus plan is not a plan that the government of Myanmar wants to go through with, because the first rule of the consensus plan is to stop all violence, a complete ceasefire across the board. And the second point of the 5-point plan is to engage with dialogue with all groups. That includes the NUG, the NUG. But Singapore seemed to be the harshest critic of the government of Myanmar currently. They still seem to think that there wasn't enough progress in Myanmar, and this might be true. Now let's go on to the Philippines. Now the Philippines, they are actually in charge. They're the chairman of ASEAN currently, so they were the kind of the lead talker, the lead spokesperson in these meetings and in these talks. Now, the Philippines has asked to see proof of life of certain political prisoners. If you're in Myanmar, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But obviously, Myanmar is not going to be trying to show anyone proof of life. But Philippines did say that they are not pushing for a 5-point consensus plan. They want Myanmar to use whatever plan that Myanmar thinks is best for Myanmar. Moving on to Thailand and Laos. Now, Thailand and Laos, they are both countries that are just pro-government, pro-Myanmar government. So they want full re-engagement with Myanmar. Now, Thailand wants full re-engagement because Thailand is dealing with a lot of these refugees and migrant workers that are leaving Myanmar and going to Thailand. And Laos wants full re-engagement because Laos is pretty much controlled by China at this point, and that's not a bad thing, but that it is what it is. And China is pushing for full engagement for ASEAN, and they're speaking through Laos, which it is what it is. But that just goes to say that not all these countries think the same way. Some of these countries are still pretty anti-Myanmar government. Some of these countries are pro-Myanmar government. So, why did this meeting happen now? Now, this meeting was actually planned and scheduled in the last ASEAN summit meeting. But the reason why they chose July and not another month is most likely because of the situation on the ground right now in Myanmar. A lot has been changing, okay? So let's talk about this situation for a moment. And let me begin by talking about the opposition groups. Now, at first, The first thing I need to say about the opposition groups is they are underfunded. They do not have money. They are relying on donations. But you can't rely on donations forever. You can't tax people on toll roads forever. And for the groups that are making money through smuggling operations, you cannot do that forever. Also, a lot of these opposition fighters have been fighting for years in the jungle. Many of them need to go back and raise their children. A lot of these are young soldiers with young children. They want to get back to their families, to their loved ones. Some people are just losing morale. They've been fighting for so long, they see the situation as hopeless. And then you also have the most important issue, and that is the infighting. These opposition groups are not united at all. Some of these groups don't even want to be a part of Myanmar. They are fighting to get their own independent country. Some of these groups do want to be part of Myanmar, but they want to have more autonomy from the centralized government. So they're willing to fly a Myanmar flag only if Myanmar does not make the rules. Some of these groups want full democracy. Western style democracy. Okay, so these groups, they don't fight for the same causes. Many of these groups fight with each other. Many of these groups are switching sides. Many of these groups aren't fighting for Myanmar or the government of Myanmar. Some of them are just fighting for China, maybe even India. Okay, but I say that to say this: the biggest problem with the opposition and the rebel groups is they lack unity. If they're not unified, there's nothing that they just can't win. Now let's talk about the government now. Now the government, the biggest change is that the fighters that they have are becoming more experienced. Remember, these soldiers they're not well fed, but they're better fed than the opposition groups. They have ammunition. They have a lot more support. There's a lot more glory in what they're doing because they can get promoted. Some of them, I'm sure, are making some money, So there's not really much to say about the government. They're kind of just slow and steady type of deal right now. But now let's talk about the battlefields, because the battlefields are in Myanmar. And this is where things get very complex, because some of these battlefields are being dominated by the rebels. Some are being dominated by the government. First thing you need to know is that Yangon, Mandalay, and the capital of Myanmar, these are not only controlled by the government, I will call these cities safe, foreigner friendly, completely safe. Then you juxtapose that to somewhere like Rakhine State. Okay, now Rakhine State is pretty much taken over completely by the opposition group, the Arakan army, and not only do they have control of most of the townships, they have began renaming city streets. They have started to implement their own education system such that the kids are going to be speaking their native tongue. I think it's the Arakanese language. They're going to be speaking that language in school and not Burmese. So Rakhine is pretty much rebel territory altogether. Then you have places like Chin State and Kachin. Now you have Kachin State that is mostly controlled by the rebels, but a lot of these rebels are either Chinese aligned or government aligned. It's not just anti-Myanmar government in Kachin State, although there still is a lot of battling going on in there. And then you have Chin State. Now Chin State is more government controlled than Kachin State, but there's still got a lot of fighting going on there. The government has been making a lot of improvements, or a lot of gains in Chin State. So Chin State is looking pretty good for the government. And there are, I can't really go over each province but I say that to say this: the battlefields of each provinces, they look different. It's not all the same. But the question I want to leave you with is, when will this battle be over? What is going to happen to Myanmar after the battle ends? And what should ASEAN do? Should ASEAN support the government? Should ASEAN invade for whatever reason? Should ASEAN just continue to support dialogue? What should the ASEAN countries do? Because right now, they're not doing anything.